So this is our social justice presentation or project on social media's effect on teenagers. And before you watch it, we have a Google form for everyone to fill out. And then
Oh, yes, right. I have to press. Okay. Yeah, I have to press the slide thing. Okay.
um, and our question is, does social media have a more negative or a more positive impact on teens' mental health and physical health?
Okay, right. So this is my antidote 4. So for my antidote 4, I did some cool pictures that you can see on Instagram. So for so in the picture to the left, you can see like a cool mountain range. It's just you can see a puppy and you can see food. What I'm trying to say is that on social media you can see anything that you want to see, and it'll be a positive experience for everyone. And in my personal experience, these are the things that I like to look at, and it brings me joy in my everyday life to look at really cool photos like these that you can see on Instagram. And it definitely affects me in a positive way.
So this is my anecdote for against, and this is a picture of a 14-year-old girl named Molly Russell who committed suicide after some of the things she was exposed to on social media. So after Molly Russell's father did some digging after his daughter's death, he found that her Instagram account was full of horrifying photos of subjects pertaining to depression and even death. Social media apps like Instagram have numerous public accounts that post pictures of self-harm and messages about suicide for anyone to easily access at the click of a button. If adolescents like Molly Russell find themselves looking at accounts like these, they can easily get the wrong message and can think that self-harm and suicide is the way to go when they're feeling down. Social media sites like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, they've all neglected to actually sift through each account that exists, leaving users really susceptible to stumble upon an image that they may not want to see, which is what happened to Molly Russell. The aspect of cyberbullying is another factor that led many teenagers to their death, not only because it hurts those that are on the receiving end of the bullying, but also because other teenagers are watching it happen right before their eyes and are starting to believe that it's okay.
Okay, so this is the overview of the controversy. So the controversy is, of course, that social media is thought to cause is supposed to have a link to negative things in teenagers' life, like depression and suicide. So in the study to your right, it was done by The Guardian. So it shows that 40% of girls who spend more than 5 hours a day on social media show signs of depression. And with boys, this is also correlated too. And then the risk of depression shown by like how many social media platforms you use also goes up. And when you use less social media, the risk of depression goes down. So of course, people are going to start wondering. There's some sort of controversial aspect to social media, and so there's something up with social media. So I just wanted to read some uh, like some official definitions. So what is a social network? So this is according to the Catholic bishops. So a social network is a website that is entirely driven by the content of its members. Individuals are allowed flexibility in private settings, in positive text, photos, videos, links, and other information, and in level of interaction with other members. So in the survey that we have sent you, you're going to fill out some examples of social media sites, and then we're going to read them, and then we'll read some else of your definitions as well.
So my personal stance on this topic is that the emergence of social media, especially in the lives of teenagers, has had a very negative impact on many aspects of their lives. Not only has social media consumed the daily lives of many teens, but it has also altered the way that teens can see the world and even themselves. Not to mention that social media apps can be an extreme stress provoker that can significantly lower teens' self-esteem. It's far too easy to get trapped into the single story of someone and their so-called perfect life because they only post the best aspects of it. So one of the most important things that all social media users need to recognize is that there's always more to see behind the curtain of social media, and most people or most things that people post are the best aspects of their lives, which leaves viewers to believe in a lifestyle or a body or a relationship that just isn't real. Um, and yeah, so this can cause teenagers to become unhappy with the lives of their own. Also, a lot of the time, both teenagers and adult users forget that social media is only virtual and it's not the same as real life human contact and communication, which is why it's important to remind social media users that spending quality in-person time with friends and family is a part of survival and happiness, and texting and phone calls can just never replace this, even though people think that they do. In terms of sleep schedules, a health reporter by the name of Rachel Klun wrote an article called The High Use of Social Media Tied to Teens' Poor Sleep Schedules. And in this, she discussed the various studies that have been conducted in regards to the link between social media use among teens and the amount of sleep that they're getting. So in one experiment led by a researcher in Scotland named Holly Scott, it was found that 1 in 3 teenagers who spend less than 1 hour on those apps tended to have the best sleep, and low users get the sleep that they need to function well the next day. So many teenagers don't fully understand the impact of a lack of sleep on their body and the importance of getting a solid amount of sleep to actually accomplish many things throughout each day. And if teenagers aren't getting enough sleep, it can result in a higher susceptibility to mental illnesses like depression and anxiety, and they can also be far less focused on day-to-day activities.
Okay, so this is my rebuttal or rebuttals or objections. So I put in a quote, and it's called "Control the controllables and block bullies." So a big part of social media, or a really big negative aspect, is bullying online and cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is a real issue and it is a problem for people, but all social media sites have some sort of feature to where you can block the cyberbully and move on with your day. So I just want I would just argue that users can block bullies, and the reason that sometimes it spirals out of control is because they don't know how to use the social media site, or they're scared by the bully, or they're just too young actually to have access to social media. So I wanted to read off like a philosophy developed by Jocko Willink. So why should you care who Jocko Willink is? He's a Navy SEAL, and he speaks on how you control your own destiny. And what, so how does this apply to social media? So the idea is that you can take control of your life and just take personal responsibility for everything. That way, you can never use something to blame your issues on. And that's what's happening with social media. And that's what I find a lot of people are using social media for. They use it as a scapegoat. So basically, what you should do is you internalize the problem and you think to yourself, how can I fix this? And the way you can fix this online is blocking people. So the other thing is time management. So I added in some tips for time management. So social media has the negative effect on people that it causes them to lose track of time. But I feel everything has that effect. TV can have that effect, reading can have that effect, driving can have that effect. So I would argue that it's not necessarily bad for teenagers because it can happen in everything. And another thing for time management is if like a young kid's parent manages their social media use if they aren't quite old enough to be mature enough to manage themselves. And yeah, so I just wanted to end on the fact that it's not social media's fault that you stay up on all night on your phone.
Okay, so my rebuttal to that is that one of the main issues with social media is that people become way less present. So even though many users see social media as a way to connect to their friends and family by showing them that they're spending time with friends or family or eating good food, like they don't realize that they're losing the aspect of presence and being in the moment by taking these pictures. So there's also a lot of social pressure around posting a photo that has a good filter or a funny caption, and this can sometimes completely occupy people's minds without even realizing it. Even though this picture someone might be taking is meant for distant loved ones to be able to see on social media, they're completely ignoring the people that are right in front of them in the moment. Additionally, the aspect of cyberbullying is another really big issue that comes alongside of social media use. So, in a survey conducted by Abby Olheiser that was put in the Washington Post called 45% of teens are online almost constantly and they don't know if it's good for them, discovered that more teens are worried about social media's role in bullying and hurting relationships. So this can be really hard on teenagers, and it can alter the way that they see themselves depending on any of the negative comments that they might be receiving. And even though it can be so simple just to block someone from your account that may be cyberbullying you, it doesn't fix the issue. And you may be able to block them physically, but for a lot of people, they can't block them out mentally. And even though social media didn't create bullying, it still doesn't justify the fact that social media is helping to make bullying easier by providing bullies with anonymity and a screen that they can hide behind. So in terms of sleep that teens are losing every night because of social media use, it is true that teenagers are making the choice for themselves and their well-being to stay on their phone instead of getting sleep. And while a parent taking away their teenager's phone at night or setting a limit to their screen time could certainly solve the issue, it's too much to ask. First of all, there are so many parents who are completely uninvolved in their child's life and they don't even know how little sleep their child may be getting, or they may not understand the effects that social media may be having on their kid. And secondly, parents shouldn't have to be the ones to take their teenager's phone every night. They should have enough responsibility to know when to put their phone down and get off their Instagram or Snapchat, which is why I'm sure many parents probably aren't even getting involved because they already expect that from their teenager. And regarding the aspect of peer pressure, teenagers definitely need to start being educated on more mature subjects like drinking and drugs, given how much of that they may be seeing on social media now. But the issue with this is that social media isn't doing any of the educating. So they're doing the exact opposite. It's important that teenagers have another form of education on topics like these so they don't feel compelled to try everything that they might be seeing on social media.
Okay. So for my slide, it's social media is an overall good thing, although it does its flaws. This is my main sentence, and it has a minimal effect on teenagers' health, mentally and physically. So I wanted to read a quote from Pew Research, and it says, "Our results suggest that social media itself does not cause any harm." So why did I read that quote? I read that quote because it's done by a research center and they have researched and they're saying that the facts don't show that there's anything wrong with social media. So so I want to say there's no conclusive evidence that social media does any harm and has an effect on teenagers' mental health. And I also want to say that social media isn't at fault for the bad things that happen on it. Social media does more good than bad and is a huge tool for spreading worldviews and information. So so I have some main points. There's no conclusive evidence that social media does any harm. Social media shouldn't be held accountable for the bad people on its sites. Social media vastly improves communication, both religiously and in all aspects of life. Social media is a safe space. And I personally can speak on the fact that social media really affects my life in a good way. And I also want to end with this: without social media, we wouldn't have puppy pictures. So there's no conclusive evidence that social media does any harm. That was by, okay, so we're officially over 15 minutes. Okay, so that was by Pew Research Center. So, and then I also wanted to say that the Catholic bishops, or the United States Council of Catholic Bishops, so the USCCB, they're hugely on board with social media, and they think that it vastly improves communications. And they say that social media can support communities in a myriad of ways, connecting people with similar interests, sharing information about in-person events, providing ways for people to engage in dialogue, etc. So the church's view on this issue is they think it's great, and even the church, a very old institution, is a huge supporter of social media, which shows that everyone is getting on board. And I wanted to just say that social media is a safe space, because if you look about Facebook's ad campaign, there's a Facebook group for that. It just shows that everyone has a place on social media, which is actually really helpful, because some kids that might be bullied aren't bullied because they feel that they have they have a place on social media.
Okay, so my objections to that are that, well, first of all, a study on the overall effects of media conducted by Russell Viner of the UCL Great Ormond Street Institute of Child Health concluded that social media itself doesn't cause harm, but frequent use but that frequent use may disrupt activities that have a positive impact on mental health, such as sleeping and exercising, while increasing exposure of young people to harmful content, particularly the negative experience of cyberbullying. So there have been numerous people that have been harmed by social media use. And of course, social media didn't create cyberbullying, and it would have still existed without the addition of social media. But that just doesn't change the fact that cyberbullying is still continuing to happen because of social media. And if this was truly a positive platform, then why are so many users being harmed by it? It doesn't mean that the entirety of it is negative, because I still use it and I've personally witnessed the positivity that it can foster, but I just believe that its negative aspects are so drastic that they can easily outweigh the positives. And a so-called positive platform shouldn't be causing depression, anxiety, lower self-esteem, lack of sleep, and an ongoing list of effects that do nothing but harm the user. And a San Diego State University psychology professor by the name of Jean Twenge wrote in the Atlantic that upon the emergence and popularity of social media, rates of teen depression and suicide have skyrocketed since 2011. And teenagers simply just shouldn't have to take their lives or feel any less than they are at the expense of an app and the facades that social media influencers are creating. And it's sad to think that many young adults feel so alone because of this, and that they can never measure up to people that they're only seeing through a screen. And additionally, even though social media doesn't or does improve online communication, it does take away from in-person communication, which is the most important. And even when teenagers are spending time with their friends in person, a phone is almost always brought out to check Instagram or Snapchat, and then the next thing you know, you and your friend are just sitting silently side by side, completely invested in what's on your phone. And in no way does this improve real life communication, which is not setting up future generations for success.
Okay, so the image to the right is Duran Ravi, and he's the man that pushed Tyler Clementi to his breaking point and made him commit suicide. He is the man that should be held accountable for Tyler's death, not social media. He's the one that bullied Tyler and was extremely homophobic. I he's the sole person at fault here. It's not social media's fault that Tyler was a bad person, to be honest. And so now for the second thing is I would want to say that the number of people who drowned by falling in a pool. So it's correlation does not equal causation. So a lot of these social media things are, or not things, these social media stats or facts are saying that there's a correlation between social media and teenage depression. Well, correlation does not imply causation. So a fun little graphic is the number of people who drowned by falling in a pool and the films Nicolas Cage has appeared in. So as you can see, they correlate, but do they have anything to do with each other? No, they don't. So that's what I would say is happening with stats on social media. And so mothers give and receive support on social media. So if you look at the graph, mothers are actually really affected really well by social media. Okay, so I'll take the future steps because I think Caroline got logged off. So for our future steps, we would like for people to create a dialogue, between people that we may not have interacted with if we didn't have social media in the first place. So according to the Catholic, so the bishops, there are more active Facebook accounts now than there are Catholics worldwide. So they're basically saying that Facebook could maybe be used as a tool to spread Catholicism, which I think is a big positive. So the biggest question that needs to be answered is that does social media have an overall positive or negative effect on teenagers itself? And that's too broad of a question. Maybe it leads us to smaller questions, which in turn will help us answer the question. So, but until we can answer that question, Pope Francis has a really great job of giving users of social media advice. He states, to dialogue means to believe than the other, has something worthwhile to say, and to entertain his or her point and view and perspective. Engaging in dialogue does not mean renouncing our ideas and traditions, but the claim that they alone are valid or absolute. So Pope Francis is saying that social media can really spread between everyone, and I just want to end on his good note that, oh, Caroline is trying to rejoin presentation. Okay. I don't know what happened there. You're muted also. Okay. Yeah, so you can take it away from here. I tried to do the last part. It's good that this is a practice run.
Okay, which part should I do? Just my part for this?
Yeah, do your part.
Okay, so so my hope for the future steps is that right now we can find solutions to help teenagers deal with the baggage that comes alongside of social media use and just try to save future generations from sort of, I guess, falling down this same trap. Even though social media is already really unpredictable, it's really hard to tell how much of it will change, if any of it actually will. But Instagram has actually started to implement a new feature that will take away the ability to see how many likes people get on their post. So they're already on a really good start to making this issue not actually be an issue anymore. But for many teenagers, a lot of their distress, subconscious or not, comes from being socially accepted, and the amount of likes that they get on their posts seem to have a lot of control over that. So this is one major aspect that I want to see change, because the number of likes shouldn't dictate how someone sees themselves. And then another aspect of the future that's really interesting to think about is the emergence and existence of social media that will affect the future of
Uh-oh. Okay, so I think Caroline is frozen. So give her some time maybe to come back. It's looking like we're gonna have to end the presentation here, I guess. All right. So these are our works cited. And if you would like to read through all of them, you will be able to in a link I will share with the class and with Ms. Fisher. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope that we have given you some good insight on if you think social media should exist or not, or if it has a positive effect or negative effect. I just ended it.
Okay, I don't know what keeps happening.